So today we're going to learn how to make a Google form, and hopefully we'll get some people to answer our surveys. I'm going to go into my tech folder from Google Drive, and for forms I suggest that you go ahead and make a new folder just for forms. So new folder, call it forms. It pops up there. I'm going to double click to go inside of the folder, and I'm actually going to make a new folder for this particular form. We're just going to call this first ever form. Okay, we'll go inside of there, and we'll do a new, click more, Google form. And here we are. We're going to X that off for now. First thing we can do is change the theme, kind of like we did with the slides presentation. And you can pick whatever you want. This one always sort of makes me happy. Okay, so we're going to go ahead back to Edit Questions. You have several options up here at the very top. So one thing that you could do is require that you have to have a City Neighbors High School login to view this form. We can go ahead and keep that checked because we're going to be doing it here inside class. And we can automatically collect respondents' username. That way we know who it is, and we don't really have to ask them who it is, and we don't have to worry about getting some inappropriate responses. The other ones are pretty obvious. If you want the questions to come in a random order, you can check that. If you require a login like we did, we can make it so every person can only do it once by clicking there. And the progress bar at the bottom of the screen, if we want to have that, it'll show people how far along the form they actually are. So this form, you can call it whatever you want. I'm just going to call it Mr. Eames Teaches Google Forms. This is the actual title of the form itself. And right now we only have one question. It is entitled Untitled Question. So what should the question be? Let's do, what is your first name? Now, if the question was somehow confusing, you could add a little help text which would sort of explain what you meant. So like, the name your mama gave you. Okay. Now, what kind of a question is it? Is it a multiple choice question? That's not going to make a lot of sense for asking someone their name unless you want to put in all possible names as a choice. So for this one, we have text, paragraph, text, multiple choice, checkboxes, choose from a list, so on and so forth. So let's go ahead and make this text. Now, the difference between text and paragraph text is that paragraph text is for answers that require a longer submission. So if I was writing several sentences, that would be a paragraph text. For a few words, text works just fine. Now, down here, there are some advanced questions or settings. We're going to leave those alone for now. We're not really going to mess with those. We can make this a required question, which is probably a good idea if we want to know what the person's name was. So now we have a single question. We're going to go ahead and add an item. If I click the little down arrow, I can say what kind of a question is this going to be next. So let's do something simple. Let's say a date. So if the answer is going to be a date, why don't we ask something simple like, what is your birthday? I don't think that really requires any help text. Okay, do we want to include the year? And do we want to include the time? So if we were asking something like, what time did you get to work today? Having the time might make sense, but for when you were born, I'm going to leave that there. And I'll go ahead and make this a required question. So let's do this. Let's add another one. If I just click, like I did add item, it defaults to the last kind of question, which was a date. That's not what I want right now. So let's go back up to multiple choice. Now let's say something simple like, what is your favorite color? Now this makes sense for multiple choice because there's only a certain number of options really. So I'll just do the obvious ones. Blue, red, green, yellow. Now obviously there are a lot of other colors that aren't in these four. So what we can do is we can do or add other, and I'm going to click that. Now they could choose blue, red, green, or yellow, or they could pick other and write in their answer. Like if their favorite color is like burnt sienna, they could click other and write in burnt sienna. So if you don't want them to have that option, don't click that. So if I don't want that to be an option, I can just come over here and click that X mark. I can also grab these little dots to rearrange the possible answers. Now, there are plenty of other question types. So we might have checkboxes. So checkboxes and multiple choice are kind of similar, but checkboxes would allow someone to check more than one. So you might say something like, what sports do you enjoy playing? And if I have several options like football, basketball, or ping pong, the respondent could choose football and ping pong, whereas a multiple choice question, they have to pick one or the other. A scale question is where you ask someone, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much did you enjoy this? Or a scale of whatever. You choose what that looks like. Those are pretty much the main kinds. If I wanted a long response, like, what do you think is the meaning of life? That would be a paragraph text, and that would be a much bigger text box as compared to the normal text here. So when you're done, you press done. There are some options at the end. When they finish, this is what it says. Your responses have been recorded. You could say, right on, you're done. You could show the link if you want to, so they could submit again. And you could publish a link if you want to that will show them all the responses that other people have put up there, including their own. And the last one is you can allow them to go back later and change their answers. And once you have finished making all the questions for your form, you click on Send Form. And it's going to give you a link that you give to the people that you want to take your survey. It's a good idea to go ahead and click on Short URL because it gives you a much easier form to remember or form to write down. The tricky part with these are that back here after the word forms, after this slash, they are case sensitive. So this capital E needs to be capital. This lowercase r needs to be lowercase. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy that with Control C or Command C if you're on a Mac. I'm going to press done. You would also press View Live Form to see what it actually looks like with the theme and everything. So here's my completed form. But if I open up a new tab and I paste in this link, here we are. And it says your username, and it already knows that I'm signed into Google, which is great. I'm going to go ahead and fill this out really fast. I was born 5/30/1982. I like green. I like playing ping pong and football. The meaning of life is 42. That's a literary reference, a very nerdy one. And I'm going to press submit. Right on, you're done. Okay, so now I'm going to shoot back into my Google Drive, into my folder where I had only actually made one thing. I had made a Google form right here. But what's happened is it automatically created a spreadsheet for me, which has all of my answers so far. So as people send you answers and responses, you get the timestamp, which is exactly when they submitted it, and the answers to all the questions: first name, birthday, color, sports, and the meaning of life. So we'll automatically put that into a spreadsheet for you, which is a really easy way to collect the data. So here is your assignment. You're going to make your own Google form. Your Google form has to have at least one of each of the following: text, paragraph text, multiple choice, checkboxes, and scale. One of each of these. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions each. At least. That's a minimum. You can have more if you want to, but at least one of each of those. And then you need to get at least 3 of your classmates to take your little survey. They are quick and they are easy, so it shouldn't take long. What you're going to do is you're actually going to turn in your Google form to me, and you're going to take a you're going to take a snapshot rather of your answers here, of the responses to your form. So I want the form and a snapshot of the at least 3 people who have taken your survey. When it comes to sending these things, can be kind of hard to, let me find it again, I've got too many things going on here. Send form. This is a lot to sort of write down and distribute to people. You might consider emailing this link to them so they can just click on it without them having to write it down and get it exactly right, but that's up to you. Or you could just send it to them, you put their email addresses in here, they get a message saying, hey, please fill out my form so Mr. Eames doesn't fail me. And you send it, and it'll go straight to their email. They can open their email and click right on the thing and fill it out. So, make a form, each of one of those questions, filled out by at least 3 people, turn in the snapshot of the results and the form itself. Good luck.